we're starting with Raw, as Seth Rollins made an interesting entrance, with the World Heavyweight Champion interrupting Rhea Ripley's announcement with a plate of buffalo wings. Ripley's announcement was twofold, with the first being that she wants Finn Balor and Damian Priest to sort out their issues, and the second being that Dominic will one day dethrone Rollins for his title. It was this claim that brought out the Architect, but their title match never officially got started, as Dominic would blindside Seth during his entrance after a distraction by Ripley. Their beatdown, aided by Balor and Priest, would have continued if not for the arrival of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, setting up a six-man tag team match announced for the main event. That match was unsurprisingly hard-hitting, and the main story of the match was Rollins trying to get his hands on Dom, perhaps setting up a title match at SummerSlam. The finish saw Ripley grab Zayn's foot, setting him up for a chokeslam coup de grace combo by Priest and Balor, who had a big hug in the ring following their victory. It seems that the Judgment Day are back on the same page, at least for the time being, and what did you make to this week's angle? Sound off in the comments. Next month, Detroit will host the annual SummerSlam, and there's been a lot said about what is going to be a stacked card. As we previously reported, there is said to be stiff competition among the roster as to who will be at the biggest party of the summer, but two names fans will see are Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. In the initial report, it was said that the tag champions were two names not locked into a match yet, but when WWE was asked for an update, they said the pair will 100% be at the show. While Owens and Zayn will compete inside Ford Field, there's no word on who they'll be facing, though the pair have been at odds with Imperium in recent weeks. It's been rumored that the undisputed tag team champions could be putting their gold on the line against DIY and two other teams, though again, nothing has been confirmed by WWE. Owens and Zayn's victory at WrestleMania was a true feel-good moment, but there's not been a major story for them since. But after not competing in London, expect the duo in action at SummerSlam. Speaking of SummerSlam, it's been expected for some time that Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar would compete this August, and now the challenge has been laid out. During Raw, Rhodes made it clear that he wants a piece of the beast at SummerSlam after Rhodes won at Backlash and Lesnar eviscerated him at Night of Champions. Rhodes also announced that Brock will be back on next week's Raw and will likely give Rhodes an answer, and expect that to be a yes, albeit sent in a very painful way. Despite rumors of a stipulation match for the pair at SummerSlam, Rhodes didn't name a specific match type, and who will you be rooting for when the Beast faces the American Nightmare? Or from Raw now, as Drew McIntyre finally returned to in-ring action this week, wrestling his first match since being drafted to the Red brand. After last competing on Raw back in November, McIntyre teamed with his new ally Matt Riddle to defeat Imperium this week, and it's clear that issues have been brewing in the group. Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci continue to rack up losses, and with the challenges to Gunther's Intercontinental Championship continuing to mount up, things aren't easy among the European heels. After the match, Gunther had some angry words for both Kaiser and Vinci, but the issues were clearly focused on the latter, and after Gunther and Kaiser walked out on Vinci, the Italian was left standing around, abandoned by his allies. McIntyre had been missing since WrestleMania 39 due to a mix of an injury and contract issues, and there's no confirmation on whether he's signed a new deal yet. What this means for him is not certain at this time, but it looks like there's a split within the Imperium faction, and a shift in dynamic comes at a very interesting time for Imperium and Gunther's title reign. Ironically, prior to his hiatus, McIntyre was fixated on dethroning Gunther and becoming the Intercontinental Champion, and going by what we've seen since Drew's return, that's still the plan for the Scottish Warrior. Do you think Drew McIntyre will be the one to dethrone Gunther and hold the Intercontinental Championship next? Let us know in the comments. More from Raw now, as Becky Lynch faced Zoe Stark on this week's show in a match proposed by Trish Stratus, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that this match would go the way of the man. After all, Lynch is one of the biggest names in all of women's wrestling, which is why it was such a shock to see Stark, mere months into her main roster run, get the win. Well, for one thing, this win marks the biggest victory for Stark on the main roster, and arguably in her entire WWE career, and serves as a sign of WWE's faith in the upcoming star. Prior to Raw, there had also been reports that Lynch had injured herself, though the nature of the injury was not disclosed at the time, and it was believed that she might not have been medically cleared to compete when the match was announced. Whatever the case was, Lynch was allowed to wrestle, but it's possible that a rumored injury meant WWE just wanted the match over and done with, and felt Stark getting the win was the better call. WWE reportedly sees Zoe Stark as a potential top heel of the women's division, hence why she's aligned with Trish Stratus, and hence the victory over Lynch on this week's show. Lynch and Stratus are expected to face off at SummerSlam in a long overdue rematch from Night of Champions, but with Becky's medical status in question, it remains to be seen where WWE goes from here. It's been close to a year since Johnny Gargano returned to WWE, but fans haven't seen much of the NXT Triple Crown champion in some time due to an injury. It was recently reported that Gargano had been pulled from a DIY reunion at SummerSlam due to his injury, disappointing fans of the popular tag team, but now there's been a huge update on his condition. Fightful Select reports that when they asked sources in WWE, they were told that he is no longer injured and that he has been factored into recent creative plans in the company. The report was unable to confirm Gargano's status for SummerSlam, but with him no longer injured and creative plans in motion, it's possible he'll be returning in time for the August 5th event. There was even a hint of a DIY reunion on this week's show, as during Raw, The Miz faced his old protege and DIY member Tommaso Ciampa, and the A-lister was able to get the win. This win marked the end of a 201-day losing streak for The Miz, his first win of 2023, and he did have some serious help along the way as Bronson Reed assaulted Ciampa during the no disqualification match. With Reed and Miz seemingly on the same page yet again, it's clear that WWE is laying the groundwork for Ciampa to need an ally of his own, that being Johnny Gargano. Gargano was backstage at a recent Raw in his native Cleveland but wasn't on the show, but this wasn't due to his injury, but simply a result of creative plans changing and his segment being nixed. Gargano is said to have been fine for quite some time, meaning a match at SummerSlam is a genuine possibility, and don't be surprised if we see him on screen with Tommaso Ciampa within a matter of weeks. During a vignette on Raw, Jinder Mahal and Indus Sher appeared, and during the segment, Mahal cut a promo in Hindi. For the majority of fans watching, they'll have no clue as to what Mahal said during the show, but in a translation, we can reveal that Mahal said that no one can step up and face Indus Sher. Mahal described his group as the beginning and the end, and it remains to be seen if Mahal and his allies can follow up on these strong words from this week's Raw. Last year, Jerry the King Lawler suffered a stroke in his home that has caused several issues for the Hall of Famer, which also meant he couldn't physically attend the Hall of Fame induction of Andy Kaufman. It's this stroke that has led to Lawler not appearing on any WWE programming in person this year, and now fans hoping to see him next month are feeling disappointed. Lawler had been announced for an appearance in Charlotte, North Carolina, but on social media, Team Art Productions confirmed that Lawler's health has caused his appearance to be postponed. As disappointing as this is for fans, Lawler's health should be the #1 priority at this time, and we're continuing to wish the King all the best on his recovery. Right now, Damage Control are going through an interesting time, as before Dakota Kai's injury, it appeared that the group was on the verge of a split. At Money in the Bank, Bayley and Io Sky again teased splitting as the pair fought in the women's ladder match, and while things seemed better on SmackDown, there's still plenty of tension. During a recent WWE live event, Bayley saw a fan holding a Damage Control sign and grabbed it with the intention of tearing it up, with many seeing this as another sign of issues within the group. With Sky now holding the Money in the Bank contract, it'll be interesting to see what Bayley makes to her allies' success, though it seems that they may not be allies for much longer. Last Friday, Edge made his in-ring return at Madison Square Garden to defeat Grayson Lawler in another fantastic outing by the former World Heavyweight Champion. In addition to being a former World Champion, Edge is a former Tag Champion, Intercontinental Champ, US Champ, and other accolades, and he's now part of a very impressive club. PW Insider's Brian Solomon pointed out that Edge is now the 7th wrestler to compete inside MSG over 4 decades, with his first appearance being at SummerSlam 1998. The Rated R Superstar would return to MSG for the 2000 Royal Rumble and would compete in the Garden several times in the 2000s as he became a top star. In June 2010, Edge competed at a cross-branded WWE live event where he lost to Randy Orton, but was part of a group that made the save during the main event when the Nexus invaded. Now Edge has a 4th decade in the Garden to his name, joining Chloe Kriani, Ray the Crippler Stevens, Aaron Skoland, Bob Backlund, Hulk Hogan, and Roddy Piper in another monumental accolade for the career of the Rated R Superstar. And we're ending with JD McDonagh, who was called up to Raw in this year's draft, and things started strong for the Irish Ace. After decimating Dolph Ziggler, it was teased that McDonagh would be recruited by the Judgment Day, but fans have seen little of the former Cruiserweight champion on Raw in recent weeks. Instead, McDonagh has been relegated to WWE main event, and fans have been left wondering if this is yet another example of WWE giving up on a member of the roster. When BWE was asked about McDonagh's status backstage, the proven WWE insider said that there is a story brewing for the Irish superstar, but a shock factor is needed. Right now, we're observing the build-up to McDonagh's shocking storyline, which, given the ongoing tensions in the Judgment Day, could be related to the faction and its expected split. McDonagh is said to have a lot of support backstage, with Triple H being especially fond of his work, but as to what his shocking story will be, only time will tell.